Imagine working at a small coffee shop, and your boss is secretly worth $12 billion. Imagine sitting next to a man on a bus, complaining about rent, gas prices, and grocery bills, while he owns 3 private jets parked just 20 miles away. For 10 long years, one of the richest men in the world lived a double life. He drove an old, dented pickup truck. He wore the same 3 shirts on rotation. He ate at gas stations. He let people talk down to him, underestimate him, even pity him. Why would a billionaire do this to himself? Was he running from something? Testing something? Or was he trying to find something that his money could never buy? Stay with me till the end of this video, because the answer to that question is more powerful than any bank account, and it might just change the way you think about success, wealth, and what it really means to be rich. This is the story of a man we'll call Daniel Cole. And what he discovered during those 10 hidden years changed not just his life, but the lives of thousands of people who never even knew his real name. Let's rewind. Daniel wasn't born into money. He grew up in a small town, in a house with a leaking roof and a mother who worked 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. He knew what it felt like to go to school with holes in his shoes. He knew what it felt like to watch other kids get new backpacks while he carried his older brother's torn one. That hunger, that deep, burning hunger to escape poverty, pushed him harder than anyone around him. He studied at night. He built small businesses that failed, again and again. But he never stopped. By the time he was 35, Daniel had built a technology company that changed an entire industry. By 40, he was a billionaire. By 45, his name was on magazine covers, business panels, and global, richest people lists. And that's when something strange started happening to him. People changed. Old friends called only when they needed money. Distant relatives suddenly remembered his birthday. Business partners smiled at him in meetings but whispered behind his back. Waiters treated him differently the moment they recognized his face. Employees agreed with every single idea he had, even the bad ones, just to stay in his good books. Daniel began to notice something painful. Nobody was talking to him anymore. They were talking to his money. He couldn't tell if a woman liked him for who he was, or for his bank account. He couldn't tell if his friends actually enjoyed his company, or just enjoyed the free dinners and the private jet rides. Every relationship in his life felt tainted by dollar signs. One night, sitting alone in a $50 million mansion, surrounded by everything money could buy, Daniel realized something devastating. He was the richest man in the room, and the loneliest man in the world. That night, he made a decision that would shock everyone who knew him. So why would someone give up comfort, luxury, and recognition, the very things most people spend their whole lives chasing? To understand Daniel's decision, we need to understand a simple truth about human psychology. Humans don't actually crave money. They crave what they believe money will give them: safety, respect, love, and freedom. But here's the twist. Once Daniel had all the money in the world, he discovered that respect bought with wealth isn't real respect. Love earned through luxury isn't real love. And a life built entirely around being the billionaire isn't really freedom. It's a different kind of prison. Psychologists call this the golden cage effect. It happens when a person becomes so wealthy that they lose the ability to trust anyone's intentions. Every smile becomes suspicious. Every compliment becomes calculated. Every relationship becomes a transaction. Daniel didn't want to live suspicious of everyone around him for the rest of his life. He wanted to know, really know, what it felt like to be seen as just a man. Not a wallet. Not a headline. Not a target for people who wanted a piece of his fortune. So he made a plan. He would transfer control of his company to a trusted, silent board of directors. He would create a legal identity, a new name, a modest background story, and disappear from public life completely. His public relations team would announce that he was stepping back for personal health reasons, and rarely appear in public. Behind the scenes, his empire would keep growing under professional management, while Daniel himself would vanish into an ordinary life. For 10 years, Daniel Cole, the billionaire, would not exist. In his place would be a quiet, humble man named Tom Wallace. A man with an old truck, a small rented apartment, and a job as a delivery driver. This wasn't a stunt for attention. Nobody knew about it except 2 lawyers and 1 longtime assistant. There were no cameras. No documentary crew. No reveal planned. Daniel expected to live this way possibly forever, or until he decided the experiment was over. What he was searching for wasn't a story to tell later. He was searching for something far more personal, the truth about people, about himself, and about what actually makes a life worth living. Year 1. Learning to disappear. The first few months were the hardest. Daniel, now Tom, had to learn how to live like an ordinary man. He had to learn how to budget groceries, how to fix his own leaking faucet, how to wait in line at the DMV like everyone else. The hardest part wasn't the lack of luxury. It was the silence. No assistants rushing to fulfill his every request. No private jet ready at a moment's notice. Just him, an alarm clock, and a job that started at 6 in the morning. He took work as a delivery driver for a local courier company. His manager barked orders at him. Customers sometimes slammed doors in his face. He was invisible in a way he had never experienced, and strangely, it felt like relief. For the first time in years, when someone smiled at him, he knew it was real. When a coworker shared half of his sandwich with him during a tough shift, Daniel almost cried. Nobody wanted anything from him. Nobody was performing kindness to get closer to his wallet. Year 2 to 4, building real connections. As Tom, Daniel moved into a small apartment complex in a working-class neighborhood. His neighbor, an elderly widow named Martha, would often knock on his door with an extra plate of food. "Because cooking for one is sad," she said. He started helping her carry groceries. She started teaching him how to cook properly, since he'd never learned. In the mansion, Daniel had private chefs. In this small kitchen, he learned to cook his first real meal, and it tasted better than anything his 5-star chefs had ever made him, because it was made with patience, not performance. He made friends with coworkers who invited him to backyard barbecues. He played cards with strangers who became close friends. He dated a woman named Sarah, a schoolteacher, for almost 2 years, and for the entire relationship, she believed he was simply a hardworking delivery driver trying to build a better life. Daniel later admitted this relationship taught him more about love than any relationship he'd had as a billionaire. Sarah didn't care about designer watches or vacation homes. She cared whether he remembered her coffee order, whether he showed up on time, and whether he listened when she spoke. It didn't work out in the end, but not because of money. It ended for the same simple, human reasons relationships often end: different goals, different timing. And somehow, that ordinary heartbreak felt more meaningful to him than any headline about his billion-dollar company ever had. Year 5 to 7, rediscovering purpose. Around the 5th year, Daniel, still living as Tom, began volunteering at a local community center on weekends. He tutored teenagers in math and basic business skills. He noticed many of these kids reminded him of his younger self, hungry to escape poverty, but lacking guidance, mentorship, or belief in themselves. He couldn't reveal who he was. He couldn't write them a check. But he could give them something arguably more valuable: his time, his attention, and his genuine belief in their potential. One teenager, a boy named Marcus, was constantly in trouble at school. Teachers had given up on him. Tom didn't. He showed up every single week, even when Marcus skipped their sessions or acted disrespectful. Slowly, Marcus began opening up. He started attending school regularly. He started dreaming about starting his own small business one day, something Tom quietly encouraged, sharing lessons he'd learned the hard way, without ever revealing the empire he had built. This, Daniel later said, was the first time in years he felt truly useful, not because of his money, but because of his presence. Year 8 to 9, the company behind the scenes. Meanwhile, back in the corporate world, Daniel's company continued to thrive under the board he had trusted. He would occasionally check in through secure, anonymous channels, offering strategic advice under a pseudonym, like a silent guardian angel guiding the ship from a distance. Some employees noticed unusually sharp, insightful advice coming from an anonymous internal account, but nobody could trace it back to Daniel. The company grew even stronger during his years away, proof that he had built something that didn't need his face or his fame to succeed. It needed good systems and good people, both of which he had carefully put in place. This gave Daniel one more gift: the confirmation that his life's work wasn't built on ego. It was built on structure. And that structure could stand strong, even in his absence. Year 10, the decision to return. By the 10th year, Daniel felt something shift inside him. He had learned humility. He had learned patience. He had learned the true weight of a dollar earned through hard, physical work, rather than boardroom decisions. He had rebuilt his understanding of trust, friendship, and love from the ground up. He also realized something important: hiding wasn't meant to be permanent. It was meant to be a lesson, and lessons are only valuable if you bring them back into the real world and use them. His company needed a visionary again. The community center needed more consistent funding. Kids like Marcus needed more than just mentorship, they needed opportunity. And Daniel, now wiser, humbler, and far more grounded, was finally ready to become himself again, not the arrogant, isolated billionaire he once was, but a better version of that man. He arranged a quiet meeting with his old legal team. Slowly, carefully, the identity of Tom Wallace faded away, and Daniel Cole stepped back into the public eye. The reveal. When the news broke that the reclusive billionaire had actually spent 10 years living as an ordinary working man, the story spread across the world. Journalists scrambled to find Tom's old neighbors, co-workers, and friends. Martha, his elderly neighbor, couldn't believe her sad bachelor next door was a billionaire. She said through tears in an interview that it didn't change how she felt about him. He was still the kind young man who carried her groceries every week. Marcus, now a young adult, was stunned to learn his mentor was one of the richest men in the country. But what stuck with him wasn't the wealth. It was the memory of someone believing in him when nobody else did. Daniel used part of his fortune to fund scholarships for kids like Marcus, to support community centers in low-income neighborhoods, and to create programs that connected mentors with young people who needed guidance, not just money. But the biggest transformation wasn't in his bank account or his charity work. It was in how he lived from that point forward. He kept his old, dented pickup truck. He still cooked his own meals. He still called Martha every week. He had learned that wealth without humanity is empty, but humanity, even without wealth, is already rich. So why does this story matter to us, people who will probably never have $1 billion? Because Daniel's 10 hidden years teach a lesson that applies to every single person watching this video, rich or poor, famous or unknown. We often chase money, status, and recognition, believing they will finally make us feel valued. But real connection, real respect, and real love come from being seen, not for what we have, but for who we are. Daniel didn't need to become poor to learn this lesson. He needed to become unseen, invisible to the noise of status, so he could finally hear the quiet truth about what actually matters. You don't need to disappear for 10 years to apply this lesson in your own life. You simply need to ask yourself honestly, are the people around me here for me, or for what I can give them? Am I chasing things that make me look successful, or things that make me feel genuinely fulfilled? Sometimes the richest lesson in life doesn't come from gaining more. It comes from stripping everything away and discovering what's left standing. And for Daniel Cole, what was left standing wasn't his company, his fortune, or his name. It was his character. Let's bring it all together. A billionaire named Daniel Cole had everything money could buy, but he felt completely alone, surrounded by people who valued his wealth more than his presence. So he made an extraordinary choice. He gave up his identity for 10 years, living as an ordinary working man named Tom, to discover what real friendship, real love, and real purpose actually felt like. Along the way, he found a neighbor who cooked him meals out of kindness, a relationship built on honesty instead of luxury, and a young boy who needed a mentor more than he needed a check. When he finally returned to his old life, he wasn't the same distant, guarded billionaire he used to be. He was someone who finally understood that true wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in the depth of your relationships and the impact of your presence in someone else's life. If this story taught you anything today, let it be this: don't wait until you lose everything to appreciate what truly matters. Start valuing real connection, real kindness, and real purpose right now, today, with whatever you already have. If you enjoyed this story and want more powerful, real-life inspired stories like this one, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss the next video. Drop a comment below and let me know, if you were in Daniel's position, would you have the courage to give up everything to discover the truth about the people around you? Thank you for watching till the end. Take care of yourself, take care of the people who truly matter to you, and I'll see you in the next story.